Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. Today, I want to go down memory lane and talk about the resurgence of football in St. Patrick. I think St. Patrick, which was so prominent in providing us with good footballers, is kind of all forgotten, and sponsorships is not like it used to be back in the glory days with Shell and Texaco and BP Paliseco and all this. So I had to dig up a couple people who has a lot of knowledge on this situation that would help me address this on this program. So let me take time to introduce um, Devnish Paul, better known as Piney. Welcome to Set Dev.
Thank you.
Nobody knows you as Devnish, so I've got to let them know. This is Piney. And Piney was one of our three goalkeepers that went to Haiti on the 1973 squad. So glad to have you. And next to Piney is Arthur Sanderson. And what are you famous for, Arthur? Welcome to the set.
I'm an all-rounder.
You're all-rounder?
Yes, I'm what you will call a community vibrant activist in issues that I think involve people and children, most of all, young people. Yeah.
Good. So you're exactly the person we need, because like myself and Finey, we were on the field and trying to make things happen when you were off the field trying to make things happen as well. Community stuff. So we want to interject some life into our sponsorships and the people who can help bring this back in the St. Patrick area, because God knows we need it, and this country is too northerly pushed and the south is always forgotten. So we will sit down like we have in a discussion and talk about the old days and what used to happen, so our new sponsors or our present sponsors can get ideas of what used to happen and how they can be part of this big planning that we want to see before we ride out into the sunset. So I would give you, Arthur, a chance to lay the foundation.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and to the wider community and your viewing audience. Thank you for the privilege of sitting here with you to talk not only about football, but sports in general. And it is important to understand, first of all, that sports is an industry. And there are many facets in this industry that can create opportunities. And this world is changing rapidly, and the opportunities that presents itself are sometimes hidden as it relates to sports in Trinidad and Tobago, I would say, Trinidad and Tobago. We in the county of St. Patrick, many years ago, the young children of today do not know about the excitement and the camaraderie that existed in sports, especially in football of yesterday. Because sometimes when I speak with my children, they say, "Oh God, Pops, we ain't know nothing about that. You could show us something," and then I go to my archive and I bring out some things that they would actually see, you know. And sometimes when I show them a field that used to have the greatest clash of the giants in Southern football, when you had North versus South. And the buses rolled from the north and came to Faizabad. And the communities from Point Forte, Palo Seco, Faizabad, Orapooch, Cedros, Icacus, Erin, journey to Apex, which was one of the pristine grounds, or journey to Civic Center, which was Mahaika Oval, pristine grounds. You wonder where all these people came from. But the excitement and the camaraderie then was something that we have lost, you know. But I always believe that the experience of yesterday can return once proper thinking and proper planning go into action. And I've been watching your program for some time, very quietly, and I say, Steve has a point. Steve needs help. And we have been doing our thing in Faizabad, and at a later time during the program, I will tell you what we have been doing in Faizabad. But it is important for the corporate citizen to understand that the corporate citizen, depending on what they are involved in, needs the community, they need the people. Whether you sell soft drink, whether you sell biscuits, whether you sell coals, whether you sell stamps or print postage, print paper, you need the community because that is what keeps your engine going. And sometimes I ask myself, you know, it may be a critical statement, but it is a statement, whether nationalizing our oil company was really to the benefit of the communities. Because when you have one national community, you have a lot of responsibility with that one company having to take care of all the communities. But in the older days, and I wish it can be returned, the older days had glory days and there were benefits. When Apex, they looked at the community of Faizabad. TPD, they looked at the community of Palo Seco, Separia, Erin, Santa Flora. Texaco, they looked after the community of Pointe-a-Pierre, they looked after the community of Forest Reserve. Right. Shell, they look after the community of Point Forte and its environs, and Lake Asphalt. They look after the community of La Brea and Vance River and those areas. And if you would remember, sometime we spoke, it is something that I've been toying with for some time, that we create an organization called SALT. What is SALT? S is for Shell, A is for Apex, L is for La Brea, Lake Asphalt, T is for TPD. And by combining these old companies, their name, they must always live on. We come up with SALT. And we are the salt of the earth. Mm-hmm. We are the salt. There was a time when St. Patrick could have produced a Trinidad and Tobago football team. We have no apologies about that. We were just good. There were one or two from the north. They were good too, but we were better. And camaraderie in rivalry is good. It's healthy, you know. We cannot do what the corporate citizens in the East-West corridor or even Central, we can't do what they do in the production capacity. But we can do best what we can do in the St. Patrick or southern area. Oil is our business. We don't really, as people, produce the oil, but we live on the oil. God put us on a spot of land where the natural resources is right below us, you know. And there are benefits that can be derived for all. But the precious asset of any community, once you put a proper planning into perspective, are the people and the community that can come from that. It is a very good discussion, a lot of thinking, and my good colleague here can tell you his glory days with some of the players that we grew up with, you know.
Yeah, Piney, what you know about those glory days?
Well, first morning, I'm glad to be here, right, and to share my views and talk about the past and the glory days. Faizabad is where I arrived from,
okay,
right? And as Mr. Sanderson saying a while ago about soul, I remember the days with SCFL and you see the football or the events that we used to have in Faizabad at that time was cricket and football at the Apex CPD, because BP and whatnot. But we had was to go about these events in such a way that we have to, I can't find the word, but it is a sport, the football and the cricket is what really had the community at hand. And we have to get involved. We have to play. But the good thing about Faizabad is that the talent and the skills, right? We was, you see, I want to really.
Do you remember we used to call Faizabad when at one point when we say we going,
Faizabad.
if we're gonna play Apex, you know.
Right.
We never say Faizabad, you know.
Right.
It was always referred to
And
as the company name.
And I remember people walking from
Right.
from 1 o'clock to reach Faizabad Apex. And that time we started play 4 o'clock games.
Right.
Right. And what happened is that all these things come and pass. And we're trying to do something back in Faizabad through sport, through football. And it's not, as I was telling you before the interview, is that we're trying to get the people involved, but getting them involved is a hard task for the youth now. So going back to Mr. Sanderson and I, as I mentioned to you earlier on, we fought already, on a long journey. We're here for years, and the fight that we fought is that we became friends up to now, and we create environments for people or teams or clubs in Faizabad. But see, after Sanderson in Faizabad, where the sport is concerned now, is that we cannot go back in the days of the glory with the youth that we have here right now. Because they, as I mentioned before, they don't want to hear nothing about the past, those times. And this is what we're trying to do, to bring back the sport in the area and in the St. Patrick area, or even the Micah and whatever it is. But we need to have support in the sense of not only playing, but after you play is where we're going.
But you said we can't afford to bring the youth. The youth, and there is the opportunity for them. If they don't have the opportunity with the support from the community or the sponsor, what do you want them to do?
You see, you're creating the environment for them,
Well, okay. So we need a sponsor to help us do that.
Right, but when we create the environment, right, today, as I encountered that already, but today we create the environment for them, and we put everything in place, but at the end of it, when they leave here, right, is where they're going.
All right. And help me to explain this, Arthur. If what we created now for these youth is not what we used to have,
Right.
because we used to have it coming from the big guns, like,
Well,
explain that.
right. Well, this is where planning comes into perspective. But I want to educate the wider community and some people in Faizabad, and maybe you too, Steve. Apex was not only a company. Apex was also a village. But the village was so well planned, and the things that came out from the people who live in the village, that Apex, the name, overshadowed Faizabad, the wider town. And again, we must go back to history. You see, if you don't trace your past, you may make mistakes in the future that the past would have taught you how to avoid those mistakes. Apex was considered one of the most outstanding community as it relates to leadership. Because when Apex, the company, came to Trinidad and settled in Faizabad, The general manager of Apex in those days, Mr. Hicklin, he was selected by the Governor General to be the representative for St. Patrick West. In those days, you could not have voted for your representative. They were selected by the governor. And out of all the British companies in South, in St. Patrick, Apex general manager was the one who represented St. Patrick West. So that gave him a sort of an elite leadership role on issues of oil and on issues of direction with the other British companies. So it is important to understand that. Now, anybody getting involved in the community would ask themselves, what do I have in it for them? Because business is not a thing for glory and friendship. Business is about making money. And the government in itself has a role to play with respect to assisting corporate sponsors who would want to get involved in community development as it relates to sports. But it must not be a handout situation, because I've seen sports destroy itself when they just wait for the bag. You know, and then you find there are people who only want to remain in office because the bag will come. And there will be questionable spending as it relates to when the bag of money arrive at the doorstep of that organization. I've seen organizations crumble. And I always believe that there's a concept in matching. If you need $100 and you need the corporate sponsor to sponsor $100, match it. So it starts from on the ground level. And the ground level will tell you if you have a plan with respect to what you want to do. For instance, in the SALT, if the A aspect has a proposal that may cost $100,000, we must show within that $100,000 proposal the ability to earn half of that. And if the sponsor wants to match that, the government should give that sponsor some form of tax relief or whatever. So it encourages it. It has a what you will call a domino effect. It has a domino effect. And that domino effect, at the end of the day, the only beneficiary will be the country.
Okay, let's hold for a second right there, because we need to take a break, and we'll come back and talk about the planning for this salt and peace with them. So, yeah, we'll be right back.
Within the SAFL football, as I was saying before, it sort of can happen in SAFL, like the system or the planning and the team structure and all that. When I sit now and I talk to people, I explain to them about the past again, like that. Why I go and fight there, talk about the new time.
Okay, welcome back to you. Okay, guys, so let's pick up where we left off here. Let's talk about exactly, the Shell, and the Shell turned to Civic, and then we had the Apex, and the Apex turned to what? I don't even know.
Apex turned to
TPD.
No,
BP.
No. Apex turned to BP.
Yeah.
No.
They had BP Pfizerbath and BP Palaseco.
That's right.
Right.
And then BP.
And then BP. Well, before Apex or before BP came in, there was TPD.
TPD, right?
TPD was before, and then when BP bought over Apex and TPD, it became BP Pfizerbath and BP Palaseco.
And then
Forest was always Texaco.
Yeah.
And then Texaco sold to
Texaco.
Trintalk, and then all this selling made things change.
Right. Okay.
You know?
Okay.
But I'm saying from the business aspect, companies come, companies go. We can't stop that. But the foundation that was laid was something to continue. A field was created. A field of dreams was created. We had, in my era, you had two men from Faizabad who led Trinidad in relation to football. You had Bercy Grell, who led Trinidad. He was from Forest Reserve Faizabad.
Right.
And you had Selwyn Moran,
right,
who was from Forest Reserve Faizabad.
Right.
And then you also had good players like Raymond Moraldo. I remember Googling just recently and seeing both of you all, Steve David from Shell days and Raymond Moraldo from Forest days,
Right.
on opposing team in the United States of America. You all got a platform that you started from the cradle, was from within your community, and you aspire to international prominence. You know, in education, some people in some school, they believe that education is what you write in what you get in the book, as it is science and physics and mathematics and all the languages. No, no, no. There's another aspect of education. And some children, they are not really versed in the academic aspect of education. But technically, you can't rival them. They're good. That is what is missing. I can talk about Faizabad. You can speak about Point Forte. Devnish can also speak about Faizabad. But there are also those who can speak about Palo Seco, Siparia, Erin. And SALT, like I said, S is Shell. If there was no Shell, there was never going to be a Point Forte Civic Center.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, there was never even going to be a Tiche or, is it Mahaika? There was never going to be a community of Mahaika. So we must say thanks to Shell for having the foresight in planning Point Forte, not only as a community, but setting the infrastructure where the people within the community can show their talent. And by extension, the schools can benefit from the talent that is exposed and the infrastructure that they put there. And one of the infrastructure that I see presently, there's a development going on there, is Mahaika Oval, right? In Faizabad, we also had the same thing. Thanks for Apex. If there was no Apex, there was never going to be Apex, a community. And Apex, a community, has now been sort of overshadowed with a smaller name called Crest Camp. But we must never forget, Apex is the bigger community of Crest Camp. And Apex is a part of Faizabad. If there was no Apex, as a matter of fact, they might not even have a Labor Day. Because it's from Faizabad, the history of the trade union was built. So there's a lot of things about in the SALT that we can talk about. The L, which is Labre, Lake Asphalt. If there was no Lake Asphalt, there was no Vestany. There wasn't even going to have a Sobo. The communities developed around the entrepreneurship of those who came and invested in our country. And infrastructure were built. Community grounds were built. Houses were built. Businesses arose out of that, because once there's a population and there's road connecting, the entrepreneurs see the opportunities and they come. You know? Suddenly everything has stopped in St. Patrick. The clock has stopped.
Yeah, but in addition, Viney moved to California with Caroni, who was in the SFL.
Okay.
And then that bill. Tell us a little bit about your, not your vision, your interaction with Caroni under the SFL and in the same salt.
Well, with the SFL, I was a member of the Forest Reserve.
Forest Reserve first, right?
First football team. But before I reached the Forest Reserve, I passed to Juventus.
Okay.
That is the club team in Faizabad that really promote and did a lot to Faizabad. And we end up But Forest Reserve playing alongside Selwyn Morin, the Morin brothers,
Right.
and even Bussy Grill, Olan Thomas and Alan Cupid. But at those times, I had to sit on the bench because Alan Cupid and Olan Thomas was that sort of player. But in the SCFL now, after playing for Forest and playing Caroni, playing your team, I don't know if you remember the game, we played them in a knockout final at Forest Reserve, where Forest Reserve beat Caroni 1-0.
And I was playing for Karen.
And you was playing for
I
Caroni.
remember that.
You do remember that? And at the end of the game, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Andrews,
Yeah.
who lived close to me in Pepper Village, was there for the game because he was more or less a scout for Caroni. And after beating Caroni, at the end of the game, he came across to me and pointed the finger. And the other thing I know, the next morning, I saw a green and yellow vehicle in front of my gap in Pepper Village. That was Mr. Andrews. Came down to let me know that I go into Caroni
Recruit you.
one time. Well, at that time, after the game, he didn't tell me anything, but he was annoyed and pointed the finger. And the next thing I know, as I told you before, our Caroni vehicle came in front of my door.
Right.
Take me up to Caroni in the SFF football. Go up to Caroni, sit down for the whole day, waiting to hear what is going on. So at one point I tell him, I say, here, I ready to go home here. He said, how are you going when you're working? Well, how are you going when you're working? And
That was the avenue.
that was the avenue that Forest Reserve and the Faisaba, the Juventus, created for me.
Right.
And I end up in Caroni, where I met myself, Steve David, and other players. And within the SCFL football, as I was saying before, the sort of thing that happened in SFL, like the system or the planning and the team structure and all that. When I sit now and I talk to people, I explain to them about the past again, like Arthur, why I going quite there, talk about the new times. So I mentioned to them, we play 5 forward, 2 midfielder, and 3 in the back. They want to know what type of football, if it's madness I'm talking about. But SCFL was one of the leading league in Trinidad football at that time. So the SCFL, NAFL, PSFL, and all these things. And all the players, all the great players for me came out during that time. And it
But not all the good players. All of them sound like we taking credit for everything. I mean, we set the tone at that time.
it will have a few outside.
There's a lot of great players now.
Because, no. But I remember when you go to the north, some of the players, the old players, they call you man from south.
Yeah, but listen, again, North had great players. They had, you're talking about ton load of them, too.
Yeah, but we have ton load. But it had no one team or no one club, right?
That was good.
No.
Malvern, Maple.
No, it was good,
Regiment.
but had the amount of players
Oh,
coming from one club,
Oh, yeah, I understand what you
right?
Okay.
So Civic now, when you talk about SCFL, so POSFL playing Civic, right? It's not SCFL because all the players come from there.
All right, but let's get into, because this, we could talk about this for
Hold on.
yeah. Let's get into, with Arthur, about some planning or to open not only sponsors' eyes, but kids as well, to look forward, something to look forward to, because it's a dream, something to start dreaming. Let's talk about some of the things that we can do to build this kind of foundation we had back.
The first thing young people normally look forward to in getting involved is the question, what is it for them? Very good question. As a matter of fact, I take my hat off for them. Because in our days, when we used to play, we never used to ask what is it in the first. We just know we got an opportunity and made best of the opportunity. And we saw what came out of it. But time have changed.
Right.
They are now asking, what is it in this for them? And many of the young people today are unemployed. And I do believe there is a responsibility of corporate citizens to promote young people who are constructively involved within their community and even nationally.
Right.
Because it is an incentive to create at the ground level their involvement in developing their community. Churches and all used to be involved. Because I remember, even in sports, in the wider aspect of sports, in the South, the Catholic Church was so organized with entity called SPE, from the St. Patrick aspect, the St. Patrick Assembly of Youth. And one of the greatest sports that you would ever see, events that you would ever see, talking about sports in general, races and high jump, and was space sports. What it had in it for them? Scouts were there looking for good athletes that they would take back. But you didn't know that scouts were, the term scout wasn't relatively hidden in the agenda of the event. Today you have scouts who leave the United States and come even today to look for players. But it is being done in a very hidden way because the young people, they do not know. It is not marketed. They don't have the opportunity to present themselves. So we have to go back to the board. The planners have to go back to the board. And I am also saying a country cannot develop without proper planning. The stars in our country can't be lawyers and economists and what do we have again? You know, those technocrats that believe that they are the developer of our country. Where are the planners? Where are the where are the technologists? Where are those individuals who really will sit and look at the future of a country? And that is where we have to go. We have to look at the future of a country. So regardless of at the partisan level, regardless, even if it change, the structure is there that they have to continue to work with. And as I talk about infrastructure, if you come to Faizabad, and I'm dealing with the A aspect in SALT, and I can even speak about the S aspect in SAF in the salt, or even the L and the T aspect. Let's take the T. You go to Palaseco today and look at the pristine infrastructure that was left for the development of the human being, whether you be old, whether you be young. The infrastructure was used by all, whether it's for walking, running, cricket, football. It will be madness and sadness to see what is taking place there. You come to Faizabad and you look at Apex ground, the pristine ground that developed individuals who are now millionaires in the outside looking for, having developed a talent that was beneficial to them and even beneficial to the country, because I remember when listening to a football, I think it was Cosmos playing somebody, and they told, was it you who were playing for Cosmos or Raymond Morales? Somebody from the South was playing, and Pele, that's the man, Pele was looking at Warren Archibald and said at the time, Warren Archibald was one of the most lucrative player that he has ever seen. And where he came from? Point Forte, the S in the SALT. And Warren was discovered by who? Don Basil Matthews. And Warren was also trained by Uta and is Esubio, those
Brunner.
guys.
Brunner.
Uta and then Brunner.
And Brunner,
Yeah.
right? So there was something in the planning aspect that nurtured the talent that made individuals who were scouting see this is good talent that has an economic benefit for whoever it would be at the end of the tunnel. The whole thing about it is that when young people come now and they ask, what is it in it for them? You can say, once we are organized and things have settled, look at Steve. That wasn't it for him. You can be like him. And there are many, many opportunities if planned properly. And we have to move like Trinidadians and Tobagonians. We have to move like Trinbagonians. We can't be moving like an Irish in Trinidad and Tobago. You can't be moving like a Pakistanis in Trinidad and Tobago. You have to move like a Trinbagonian. And I take my hat off to the Jamaicans. A Jamaican is a Jamaican wherever in the world you go, you know. We must pattern good things, you know. And I say that this opportunity, this period in this country, is the best opportunity we can use now in the quietness of this pandemic to begin to reorganize, mobilize, and go forward as a region that can set the example for the country. Taking my mind back, I remembered journeying to Port of Spain some years ago and talking to a good friend of mine called Alvin Cornell. And the discussion was with Alvin was to bring back the glory days of the old men who were the runners at the time, in a north versus south, in the same SALT aspect, you know. And we were planning it to execute it, and the COVID come in. Right. But even talking with Alvin too he was fit. He saw something in it. And this concept is not for St. Patrick only. This concept is even for Port of Spain. It can serve within the various counties of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to take a break. But when we come back, I going to be the kid who you have to motivate to be part of this, and the sponsor who you have to motivate to put their money in and support this effort, and so we can tell them what we want to happen and what we expect from them. All right?
Sure.
We'll be right back.
Some of the technology might have changed. Even the personality of individuals and parents might have changed. But the concept must not change.
Right.
We must adapt to the concept. And if this time creates certain situation that requires additional assistance, we must adapt.
Okay, viewers, welcome back. So, guys, like we said, the sponsors are listening, and the young kid who has the dream is listening to us here now as to how is this going to work on the ground, on paper. So, or how is it going to make it happen for us. We all ears. And barbershop discussion, so I don't even have to ask you a question. So,
well,
you want fine. Devnish, what do you think? You want to think or you want Arthur to go?
Yeah.
Arthur, go first.
So it used to be even in school. Let me give you a joke, which is part of the discussion.
Right.
I love football. So did my brother. We love football. But the only thing that my father used to have that mind us to go to school was pigs and cattle. And when he heard that we were playing football, he used to pick a go of a whip and come on the field. That is the type of thing that we had to endure for sports. You know, and most of us, many of us, our parents couldn't see a future in sports because they thought that being a lawyer, a shoot and tie around your neck and a briefcase in your hand was the job. It's not, you know. How can we start? We must begin by mobilizing, and we have to get those community grounds active again. Active by encouraging individuals who have administrative minds to create small leagues that could be managed properly.
But we have that going already, kind of.
In some communities, they exist. In others, they do not. Right. But there must be a bridge between the football aspect, there must be a bridge between the National Football League what you call Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, TTFA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Football Association.
TTFA, and the community leagues. Because sometimes you have good players who get selected for the national level. And I think there is some little clause in their contract that tells them they can't go and play for the community league, you know, and they have them scared. But it's the community that grew up the child. And it's the community that go out and support the child in order to see him kick or play or score that goal that he knows that he has the ability to do. So the TTFA must now begin to recognize the community and build that bridge. It has to start from the top.
But it is built. It's not like the TTFA say you can't play minor league at all. It's like if they're coming up to some big tournament, World Cup preliminary, they would say slow down from that.
Right?
Okay, so
this is understandable.
Yeah.
This is understandable. But somewhere in my discussion with young players who were being looked at as talent for the national level, they keep saying, well, TTFA tell us don't play in no minor league. So that psychological barrier must be made very clear at the national level. That's one. Two, sports in school must be a subject. Clear, it must be a subject.
Well, they should bring back sports into the elementary schools. Not sports, football especially. I'm saying sports into the elementary schools because we used to have that.
Yes.
We don't have that.
And all of these things that were good in the past suddenly is no longer on the curriculum. So the Ministry of Education must begin to review its entire curriculum. And even schools that are managed by churches must also review their curriculum.
Well, let's talk about that so they understand. So, because I'm saying so they understand. In elementary school, we had the schools playing against each other. And then at the end of the season, they have the guy called Babsy Daniel used to run around to all the schools and give a little small camp on how to head and how to trap and all that kind of thing. And then he selects an all-star team in St. Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
And that St. Patrick team plays San Fernando, which is Victoria.
Yeah.
And then they play us. They make that into one group, a South team, that would play North because North will have done the same thing.
Right.
Mhm.
And now we could pick an elementary national team if you wanted to. Is that the kind of thing you expect
Yes,
you want
yes,
to see
yes, yes,
happen?
yes. My question is, why have they removed it?
But now, again, it's always about the dollars and cents. So, and of course, the educational system is different from when we grew up. We grew up, you could jump on a bicycle and you can ride to San Fernando. You can't do that no more.
No.
So, things have changed.
Yeah, but the season might have changed. Some of the technology might have changed. Even the personality of individuals and parents might have changed. But the concept must not change.
Right.
We must adapt to the concept. And if this time creates certain situation that requires additional assistance, we must adapt. And that is why I say anything one does, you must be constant planning and review.
Right.
You don't just get rid of it. You must be planning and review.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when Finey talk about the car that come down and tell him they want him up at Caroni, you
Right.
think that car just came there on its own? Behind the scene, some individuals were speaking and saw the benefit and the asset, not to them, but to the company.
So let me devil's advocate for you.
Yes.
When we had Shell and BP Pacifico and BP Pfizer and Texaco and Lake Asphalt, those were big companies that was running. Now, who are those companies in the St. Patrick area that can do that?
Well, we're not only talking about St. Patrick, but we can talk about Central.
Yeah.
But for the St. Patrick aspect, I know in Point Forte, I don't know how vibrant they are, but there's a business organization. I think they call
Atlantic
this,
LNG.
No,
Who?
we're not dealing with individual organizations now. Let's deal with the infrastructure, the business infrastructure that
Okay.
would represent those individuals who may be a part or member of that organization.
Okay.
Some call them Chamber of Commerce. I think it's called the Southwest Chamber in Point Forte, where I presume the business sector would be a member of. In Faizabad, they have the Faizabad Chamber. So you deal with the chamber, you deal with the organization, and if they are true as it relates to why they were set up as business entity, then it would prove, then we can now say they really represent what they are.
No, Arthur. Because, like Fanny said, the vehicle pull up, we need you.
Yes.
That is Caroni.
Yes.
Okay. So Shell would say, I need so and so, and Shell would pull them in. If you fight about it, same thing. So we need the companies to hire these young players.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, I always believe in structures. We are just the chambers.
How the chamber can make that happen?
The chamber can adjust now their members.
Meaning who?
The members of the chamber, I presume, let's say Point Forte, Atlantic LNG may be a member of the chamber, Royal Bank may be a member of the chamber, Gopis may be a member of the chamber, right? In Faizabad, you may have Nimchan Studio being a member, Kennedy Electrical being a member, you know, because the business sector that exists in different communities differ, not only by size, but also by way of contribution.
It has to be more direct.
No. You deal with the chamber, and then the chamber would refer to the company. And the company now, if they have an interest, would then respond back to the chamber, and the chamber would then respond back to us. You see, once you begin to go directly to individual companies, we don't have the manpower.
No. And I'm not saying we have to do that. I'm saying just like we didn't have to go to Shell and Apex and all these people. They just did it because they were run by the foreigners, the Englishmen, who was very much football oriented, and
Sports,
that was in their mind.
Yeah.
And these were the experts were the guys who really set our structure up for us.
Yeah, but Steve, we don't know what negotiations that those companies held maybe with the government of the day. That if they put out 50 million, that they get a tax break of 40 million.
Okay.
We don't know. You see, there are a lot of, that's why I say the planning aspect of what we want to do. It has to be a number of organizations, structures. They must get involved. Otherwise, it will fail. Otherwise, it will just be temporary.
No, but I'm saying we don't go to them now. They're listening to us now. So let them make the effort, is what I'm saying.
Our effort is now to introduce them with a proposal of what we want to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's see where it goes from there.
What you say, Ryan?
No, yeah, and let them do the calling, they call us in, and from there, we'll go from there.
But if I sit back here, people to call.
No, you're making the effort too, you know, but
Not happening.
I mean, as I said, they're listening and they're understanding, so they would call us, because people now in Central, where I am at present, they're out of sport because the whole industry in the back there, it just split up, and the people telling you straight up, sport is no benefit for them. It brings in nothing for the company. So you have to actually beg, you know, in order to get something from them. But they don't hear anything about sport.
Well, I am sitting here now and saying, I am asking the head of these companies
Organization, right?
to get together and say, hey, you know what, we dropping the ball. Let's do something about the youth in our community and try to put them on the right path. So let's form a league, or let's start putting our money into a league in this SFL, Southern Football League, and try to make this happen. I think that's how it happened, don't you think?
Well, let me I was trying to stay away from a certain direction,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a field of dream. This is the best time, if the Minister of Finance is listening, to put in his budget some form of incentive to corporate citizens within a specific county
Mm-hmm.
that can invest
Oh, I agree.
in some
I agree with that.
aspect of sports.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
Yep.
the companies now, once that is there, they have a responsibility
Right.
to now act, because it has something in it for them.
Right.
And they are also playing a role in the development of the community
Mm-hmm.
where they live,
Right.
or actually where they are doing business.
Right.
Right? Look, I always say, I've been to countries where people are interviewed for a job, and I was at a specific business at the time, and I was asked to sit and listen and observe how they conduct this aspect of interviews for a specific job. And two questions was asked. One, are you involved in your community? If you are involved, what is the group or organization? And you know where many of them got the jobs? They were involved in Cubs or Scouts, Girl Guides or Brownies, which is an internationally recognized organization, right? And they pick them. You know, today, many people get jobs, and the backdrop of their job have nothing to do with what they do to help build their community or society. I mean, we have to look at that.
Because we don't have that exist anymore, like the
Why?
CIO and the
Why?
APD
That is
and
what
all
help
that.
kills. That is what help kills the social fabric of a community. When the institutions that are supposed to be there to assist in building the community, when you kill that, you kill your community.
So how many community centers they have that really in operation that provide the place for these small groups to go and start the meetings and stuff?
Well, I think bigger. I think out of the box. I always believe that you don't have to put everything in a community center. I believe that you can encourage a group who want to build their own community center,
Right?
that they should do.
Okay.
Because sometimes everybody don't want to meet in the same place where everybody meet.
Okay.
You know, there's culture that is involved in that. You know,
So those little groups do take you or I to go and start these things.
that's right.
But it's not started.
Yes, the bottom line towards social development is planning, and the planners must now begin to speak with those in authority to set the infrastructure to encourage. But it must not be a top-down approach. It must be a bottom-up approach. You must see where these things exist and begin to assist, so that others that looking in can now say, well, let's do what Faizabad is doing, or let's do what Point Forte is doing, or let's do what California is doing, you know. And the issue of age does not come into account. Because when you look at the international community that speak on sports or the direction of sports, it is those with the wisdom of yesterday can pass it towards tomorrow in the hands of those who are young today. So you bridge the gap. There are people who will look at you and say, well, where does old man come from, boy? That old man is working with a wealth of experience and so many things that he just want to pass it on. But there's no place to pass it on. So I take my hat off to you, Steve, in what you are doing in Faizabad. I take my hat off for Finey, what he is doing in
California.
In California.
Over.
You know, and the team, Field of Dream, is a reality. Your dream is in that field. Whether it be netball, basketball, football, cricket, hockey, or even golf. It's there.
All right, we run out of time. To the sponsors and the promising kids who is out there dreaming right now, keep the faith. Sponsors, they're looking forward to you making that happen for them, to give them some kind of help to move forward. So we hope you chip in and do something. Finally, and Arthur, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank
I
you
hope
very
it
much.
will not be the last.
And you're always good people. Stay on the right track as usual. Don't let me have to come and find you.
Thank you.
Finally.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Viewers, thank you for tuning in every Monday night at 8 and repeat at 1 o'clock on the Tuesday and the Saturday. And we have a Facebook page. You can always check us out. We have an email address, petersdreamtv@gmail.com. You can drop us a line. This show has ended. I'm Steve David.